Dear you, I'm writing to you from a version of yourself who remembers what it felt like to try, truly try, and still feel like it wasn't enough. Not because you weren't putting in effort, but because the effort never seemed to translate into relief. You showed up, you adjusted, you learned, you kept going, and yet there was a quiet disappointment that followed you through ordinary days, like a shadow you couldn't shake. I remember how confusing that felt. You looked at what you were doing and thought, I'm doing what I can. Why does it still feel this heavy? You didn't feel lazy. You didn't feel careless. You felt tired in a deeper way. Tired of measuring yourself against invisible standards. Tired of wondering whether you were falling short without knowing where. Tired of giving your best and still questioning your worth. You didn't talk about it much because on the surface, things seemed fine. You were functioning. You were responsible. You were managing. And that made it harder to explain the ache underneath. It wasn't dramatic pain. It was quiet discouragement. The kind that settles in slowly and makes even good days feel muted. There were moments when you thought maybe you were expecting too much from yourself. Moments when you wondered if this was just how life felt for everyone, and you simply hadn't accepted it yet. You told yourself to be grateful. You reminded yourself of what was working. You tried to stay positive, but the feeling lingered, not loud enough to demand attention, just persistent enough to make you feel alone with it. You kept pushing because stopping didn't feel like an option. You didn't want to disappoint anyone. You didn't want to fall behind. You didn't want to admit that you were struggling in a way you couldn't explain. So you carried on, quietly hoping that one day it would all click, that the effort would finally feel worthwhile. I saw how often you questioned yourself. I saw how often you wondered if you were missing something obvious. I saw how you blamed yourself for not feeling satisfied. And I want you to know this. Feeling this way didn't mean you were failing. It meant you were human, trying to live up to expectations, some real, some imagined, without ever being taught how to rest inside your own efforts. You were doing your best in a world that rarely pauses to acknowledge how much effort that actually takes. Your past self understands now why doing your best still didn't feel like enough. It wasn't because your best was lacking. It was because your best had become a moving target, shaped by comparison, pressure, and constant adjustment. Every time you reached one standard, another appeared. Every time you adapted, the goalposts shifted. And slowly, without realizing it, you learned to evaluate yourself through endless expectations instead of self-respect. You were trying to meet too many measures at once. Be productive, but not burned out. Be strong, but not closed off. Be kind, but not taken advantage of. Be ambitious, but not anxious. Holding all of that at once is exhausting. You also learn to tie your sense of worth to outcomes rather than effort. So when results didn't come quickly or recognition didn't follow, you felt like the effort itself didn't count. You forgot that showing up matters even when it doesn't lead to immediate change. You forgot that growth isn't always visible while it's happening. The truth is, your nervous system was tired before your mind admitted it. You had been running in a constant state of almost enough, almost there, almost successful, almost at peace. Living in almost keeps the heart tense. It never gets to land. It never gets to feel finished. You weren't failing to do enough. You were failing to give yourself credit for what you were already doing. Your past self sees now that the pressure came from believing you had to earn rest, validation, and ease. That if you just tried a little harder, proved yourself a little more, then you would finally be allowed to feel okay. But that permission never came because it was never something the world could give you. It had to come from within. You also carried silent comparisons. You saw people who seemed more certain, more accomplished, more settled. You assumed they weren't struggling the way you were. You didn't see their doubts, their pauses, their private exhaustion, and so you held yourself to a standard that wasn't real, measuring your inner experience against other people's outer appearances. That will always feel like falling short. Your effort was real. Your fatigue was valid. Your discouragement made sense. You weren't meant to constantly evaluate yourself. You were meant to live, adjust, and grow without turning every step into a judgment. And once you understand that, the feeling of never enough begins to loosen its grip. Now I'm speaking to the you reading this, the you who still wonders if you're doing enough, the you who worries that effort without visible reward means something is wrong, the you who just wants to feel okay with where you are. Take a slow breath, let it settle. Let this truth reach you gently. You are allowed to be enough without proving it. Your effort counts, even when no one applauds it. Your growth matters, even when it's quiet. Your persistence is meaningful, even when results take time. You don't need to exhaust yourself to be worthy of rest. You don't need to reach a milestone to deserve peace. You don't need to justify your tiredness. Life is not a constant performance. It's a process, and processes include pauses, uncertainty, and moments where progress feels invisible. That doesn't mean you're stuck. It means you're human. You can begin to shift the weight by noticing what you already do well, by acknowledging the effort it takes just to show up, by allowing yourself to say, "This is hard," without immediately following it with, "But I should be able to handle it." You are not behind. You are not failing. You are not missing something obvious. You are learning slowly, imperfectly, honestly how to live in a way that doesn't cost you your peace. And that learning takes time. One day, you will look back and realize that the season where nothing felt like enough was actually the season where you were redefining what enough meant. You were learning to separate effort from worth. You were learning to rest without guilt. You were learning to stop chasing validation and start offering yourself understanding. Take another breath. Let it be easy this time. You don't need to do more to deserve kindness from yourself or anyone else. You don't need to become someone different to be okay. You don't need to wait for permission to feel content. You are allowed to stand where you are and say, "This is enough for today." And tomorrow, you can do the same. That's not giving up. That's learning how to live without constantly measuring yourself. And that shift, quiet, gentle, deeply human, is what finally allows effort to feel meaningful again. Sincerely, you.